What's up, guys? This is Ian here, coach of your Ladner Lanturn, bringing you guys our Week 10 team builder for the Mombasa City League, or the NCL. This week we are taking on my good buddy Nacho and his Detroit Teravolts. Surprisingly, I think I've been part of the Draft League community for a while now. We're actually coming up on my 8th month. We're in the middle of my 7th month in the Draft League community now, and I've known Nacho that entire time. We've grown closer as friends. I would say that we're more than acquaintances, at least at this point. And he kindly took over this team for me. Obviously, I run the league, so he took over this team to help me out. And this is the first time that we're actually playing a match against each other, which is kind of cool. We've been in 2 leagues together and never played a match before in those ones. And then this will be the first time, and then we actually have another game coming up in the EPTL. Just quickly run through this to see what week that is. In about a month, actually, we'll have that match going on too. So pretty fun stuff over here on the channel. Well, that one won't be on the channel, but we're playing Nacho, which is kind of cool. I love Nacho and playing Nacho. His team consists of Megalatios, Tapu Bulu, Hawlucha, Araquanid, Chandelure, Sneasel, Kangaskhan, Milotic, Nidoking, Magneton, and Xurkitree. He has priority in Sneasel with Ice Shard, Kangaskhan with Fake Out and Sucker Punch. He has Hazard Setting in Araquanid with Sticky Webs, Nidoking with Stealth Rock and Toxic Spikes. He has removal in Megalatios with Defog and Hawlucha with Defog. And he has 2 4x weaknesses, Tapu Bulu to Poison and Magneton to Ground. Now, Nacho hasn't brought Magneton at all this season. I think it might come. Actually, I'll just run through real quick what I think he might bring. I think Megalatios is probably coming. I don't think Tapu Bulu is coming. We'll see. We'll see. It doesn't get good fairy coverage to hit Girder with, and Girder hits it back really hard with the Poison Jab. Mega Beedrill also is way faster than it and threatens it out with a Poison Jab too. That's kind of the extent of it, but honestly, Darmanitan absolutely blows that thing back with a Flare Blitz. Celesteela kind of checks it as well. Tapu Bulu does switch in well to Hydreigon because of its natural fairy typing, but I don't think that he would bring it just for that. It switches into Azu alright as well. It doesn't switch into a player off very well. So, you know, there's sort of a give and take there, but I think that it's threatening enough, like my team is threatening enough to Bulu that he wouldn't bring it necessarily. We'll find out. If he brings it, it's likely only going to be a terrain setter for the Hawlucha in my mind. Hawlucha is kind of a big problem for my team. I don't have the best answers to it. It beats Girder, which beats Bulu. It beats Beedrill, which beats Bulu. It doesn't necessarily beat Celesteela, which beats Bulu though, so that's something to think about. And we're bringing something for the Hawlucha, but Hawlucha is always a threat. Araquanid probably brought for the webs. I could see that happening. I do have quite a bit of removal on my team, but we'll see if he ends up doing that. Chandelure, pretty consistent bring for him, so I think it's coming. Sneasel, again, another Pokemon that I actually do think is coming. Checks my Hydreigon really well because I can switch in on a Dark Attack, actually. And then Oko with, like, Icicle Crash. Checks Rotom-Mow. Checks the Donphan, checks the Mega Beedrill with Ice Shard, checks the Rabombi, checks the Espeon, so I think that Sneasel's probably coming. Kangaskhan I don't think is coming, just because I don't think that he would need to bring it, and it also loses to Girder, and it's basically bulk up setup fodder for Girder too. Milotic I think is coming, because it's such a good defensive check to many of the mons on my team. I don't have the best answers to Bulky Waters, it's pretty much Rotom-Mow, and that's about it. Nidoking I think could come as well. Magneton I think is coming to trap my Celesteela because I've brought Celesteela to every single game. There's no reason for him not to think that I'm bringing it. Xurkitree, again, another Celesteela check. More of a soft check than Magneton, where Magneton can like explicitly trap Celesteela and kill it with like magnet pull choice specs. Xurkitree kind of just like sets up on Celesteela and threatens it out with a high-powered Thunderbolt. So we've got prep for that though. Anyways, you'll notice that I named off 9 Pokemon out of his 11 that I think are coming. He obviously has to pick 6 of those, so that kind of leads into a better, favorable matchup for me. I don't think both electric types would come. I think only one would come. And in my mind, it's going to be the Magneton, because I actually think that Xurkitree has a harder time kind of doing things against my team in general. So we'll see what happens there. Nacho is clinched for playoffs. That is something to note. Nacho is officially clinched for playoffs. He is not clinched for his division leader yet, but he is guaranteed at least a top 4 spot. Therefore, he was clinched for playoffs after we beat Austin. We actually clinched him because Austin, he couldn't get less wins. Sorry, he couldn't get less than more wins than Austin, if that makes sense. That's a really horrible way of saying it, but basically Austin was in 5th place in their conference and Nacho was in 1st. And Nacho had 5 wins and Austin had 1 with 3 games left. So there's no way that he can drop below 4th. There you go. There's no way Nacho can drop below 4th, therefore he clinched a playoff spot. We are still looking to clinch our own playoff spot. I might be able to clinch based off of this, depending on how the games in Week 9 go. We are still in the middle of Week 9 as I'm recording this. I'm trying to get this out quickly because I have some graduation, end of semester projects coming up the next 2 weeks that are kind of going to kick my ass, so I'd like to get as much prep as I can done for the week ahead. And yeah, so we might be able to clinch depending on that sort of stuff, so I'll maybe talk about that at the beginning of the battle. Depending on if I even know at that point, but that's a possibility for us, is that we might be able to clinch a playoff spot regardless of the match, potentially, or because of the match. So let's start talking about my team. I've kind of beaten around the bush, and let's start talking about this. So I'm bringing Mega Beedrill. This is a massive threat to Tapu Bulu, massive threat to Mega Latias. It's actually a reasonable threat to things like Magneton, Nidoking, and Xurkitree. If I were to pack the Drill Run, which you can see that I'm not, it's a massive threat to the Sneasel as well. It can be a massive threat to the Mega Kangaskhan, and I think the set that we're bringing is actually a massive, it's a massive threat to the Chandelure as well. I haven't prepped this very well for a Scarf Chandelure, so that's something to watch out for on my end, actually, is that I don't have the best answers to that, but we'll kind of deal with that as it comes. We're running U-Turn, Fell Stinger, Poison Jab, and Knockoff. Now, Poison Jab, Knockoff, and U-Turn might sound standard to you, but Fell Stinger maybe not. So if you don't know what Fell Stinger is, it is they actually buffed it in this gen. It's a base 50 power bug move, physical bug move, that raises your attack by 3 if it KOs the target. So if you see something low and you click Fell Stinger on it, you can pick up a +3, and then basically Mega Beedrill just like tears through his team with a combination of Knockoff and Poison Jab. Adaptability boosted Poison Jab pretty much OHKOs everything at +3, except for Magneton, which is a Steel type. And it's not going to OHKO the Milotic either, I don't think, and it's not going to OHKO the Nidoking. However, we can get a Fell Stinger boost off of things like Mega Latios and Sneasel very easily. Potentially not the Chandelure because it'll be 4 times resisted, but potentially the Araquanid because that's a much more specially defensive mon. The Xurkitree, if he's not a Scarf Xurkitree, and the Kangaskhan should all be fairly easy Fell Stinger boosts. Tapu Bulu, I don't think he'll get low enough. I think I'll have to one-shot it with a Poison Jab, so that's maybe not there. But like I said, this is a really strong set to clean up his team later if I needed to. Max Stack Adamant, we can afford to run. We only need 172 investment to outspeed the Hawlucha before Unburden, which is the fastest thing that he can possibly run without a Scarf or the ability popping. Whew. Yeah, pretty much it. I could have chosen to outspeed a few other things, but I decided against it. The bulk is going to help a little bit in dealing with those anyways. Not with Scarf Chandelure, but potentially with like a Scarf Magneton it would. Potentially with a Scarf Xurkitree it might. Beedrill has a higher natural special defense than physical defense, so I'm not as worried about that. Dealing with Mega Latios, I kind of just need to U-turn on it unless I can get it low enough to Fell Stinger. So that's the thing there. Anyways, you'll notice we don't have a Hawlucha check yet, well, obviously, but we have our Bulu check now. So our Hawlucha check is actually going to be a Rocky Helmet Uxie, Lobotomy coming, with Heal Bell, Toxic, U-Turn, and Psychic. I'm worried about getting burnt on some of my physical attackers, so I'm running the Heal Bell in case Milotic ends up burning things with Scald. Chandelure, I think, gets Will-O-Wisp. I don't know about the rest, but potentially like Toxic Spice from Nidoking or something could be a pain. Toxic from anything in general could be a pain, so I'm running the Heal Bell just in case. I've got my own Toxic on there to deal with the Mega Latios, because that's a pretty free switch into Uxie. To deal with the Milotic, which is also a pretty free switch into Uxie. To deal with basically anything, he's got one Toxic immunity, or two excuse me, 2 Toxic Communities in Nidoking and Magneton. Nidoking doesn't feel safe into Uxie because I can run Psychic Stab, which I am running. I'm running Psychic. I calced between Psychic and Psyshock, and Psychic actually did way more to his team. The only thing it's not hitting better is the Araquanid, I believe. So Psychic it is, and then I've got U-Turn on there for some good momentum. We're a very physically defensive set to be able to take on the Hawlucha. Even at +2, that thing's not really touching us very well, and we have Psychic. He's going to get the defense boost from Grassy Seed rather than the Spidef boost, so Psychic will also do more that way. Last 4 points, or the last 8 points, sorry, because we have an odd value of HP, I just sort of split between the attacks to get a little bit more out of U-Turn and a little bit more out of Psychic. That's kind of Uxie's job, is to wall the Hawlucha, potentially the Nidoking if he's a physical Nidoking, the Bulu potentially, the Araquanid potentially, although I have better answers for those. Next up is our special sponge, or one of our special sponges. It's actually AV Azumarill. We're bringing Assault Vested. I could have run a Thick Fat set, but I feel like I'm just not going to do enough damage without Huge Power. So I'm running Huge Power instead of Thick Fat, although Thick Fat could deal with the Chandelure really well. I still think that I'm going to be able to tank hits relatively well with the AV, and then we can move on from there. Play Rough to hit basically his entire team. Nidoking and Magneton can switch in on that. You'll notice that there's quite a trend between Nidoking and Magneton kind of like doing the same thing, and I've got a check for both of them coming up in a bit. 2 checks for both of them coming up in a bit. Aqua Jet just to pick something off. I think it's really useful to have priority, especially against something like a Hawlucha. Now, it's not banded Aqua Jet, but it'll be able to pick the weaker things off. It'll pick something like the Chandelure, Sneasel, and the Hawlucha off potentially. Nidoking's also weak to it. Xurkitree if it's low enough. That kind of thing all get picked off by Aqua Jet. Liquidation, like he's got 3 or 4 water resists on his team. He's got quite a few water resists, but the rest of his team doesn't really want to take a Liquidation, and his water resists don't want to take a Play Rough, so that's kind of there. Knockoff just to get rid of some items. You'll notice that Beedrill also had knockoff, kind of like going in the same trend where I'm trying to just get rid of some items and hit things really hard. Max HP with Max Attack Adamant, last 8 points into Spidef. It's kind of just to boost the power of the Assault Vest there at the end. We're bringing a Special Sponge. This is almost entirely for the Xurkitree, and if Xurkitree doesn't come, then I don't know what to say. I could use this for the Mega Lottie still. Running a Volt Switch, Mono Volt Switch with Toxic Defog and Pain Split. Last week we ran Mono Volt Switch with a Scarf. He does have a Ground type in Nidoking, which actually hard walls this, and I was running a Leaf Storm. I was running Leaf Storm on here before, but I thought that Toxic was kind of a little bit more helpful, because Mega Lottie seems pretty free to switch into Dual Stab on his side. And I think the Toxic's worthwhile for me to just sort of like catch the Mega Lottie coming on me. I've got the Defog on here to get rid of his webs. My team does not like webs on our side of the field, and I'm not bringing my own webs, so I've got my Defog rather than my Rapid Spin this week. And I've also got Pain Split because we're an Electric Sponge, so we're going to tank hits from the Magneton really well and the Xurkitree really well, and then we can Pain Split up after we take some damage, especially against something like a Melodic that's going to spam Recover, or a Mega Lottie that's going to spam Recover. Even the Tapu Bulu, which could prove to be a relatively good Special Sponge, and we're not going to benefit from Grassy Terrain, so that's kind of where I'm at with that. We're running Max Spidef again. So we're fulfilling kind of the same role as Uxie, right? So Azumarill is kind of a middle ground on the special side, and Rotom is kind of the same role as Uxie, where we're a fully Spidefmon, built to take on the Xurkitree, because I think Xurkitree is kind of a threat to most teams, and it's his kill leader, if I am thinking correctly, or it's tied with Nidoking as his kill leader, so I want to deal with it in a good way. We're also bringing a Celesteela. I want to leave for Celesteela for last, actually. We're bringing a Hydreigon, which I'm actually just going to move ahead of Celesteela there so we aren't out of order. Bringing a Choice Scarf Hydreigon. I was thinking Choice Specs Hydreigon initially, because if Tapu Bulu doesn't come, he basically just lost a Mon every single time Hydreigon came in and clicked Draco. I'm not even lying, like, basically Melodic Magneton were kind of his sponges to his Specs Draco. Maybe a Araquanid too, but like a lot of stuff just died if he didn't bring Bulu or Bulu was dead. But I decided to go with a Scarf variant instead to be able to revenge kill the Xurkitree if I need to. This might bite me in the butt, but a Scarf variant can also outspeed the Chandelure. I think it's important to have a Scarfer on this team to be able to outrun Mega Beedrill if I have to, because he's probably going to bring some stuff that outruns Mega Beedrill. That's kind of just my thought process on bringing the Scarf now. Initially, again, I had specs on here. Dual Stab is enough against this team. The only thing it doesn't hit is the Bulu, and if that's going to switch in, then I have U-turn. If he's predicting something like that. Like, Mega Lottie cannot stay in Hydreigon really at all. I've also got Defog on here as a backup in case Rotom goes down or Hydra goes down, that Rotom's the backup kind of thing. Just because webs are such a problem. I'm actually bringing... I don't need this. I actually don't need Defog on here, so I'm going to figure out what I want to put on here and change it right away. Fire Blast makes more sense to me to catch the Bulu, actually. So we're in Fire Blast. Looking at my team, I don't need the Defog because Mega Beedrill is the only thing that really is affected by webs. I'm bringing a not-so-webs weak team, and you know what? Now that I think about it more, he probably won't bring webs against my team because I have SB on, and I can just Magic Bounce them back, like, permanently. So, you know what? No. I'm not as scared of his Araquanid and his webs. He might not even bring Araquanid now that I'm actually thinking properly about this. Fire Blast makes a lot more sense to catch the Bulu, and it hits everything on his team, bar the Chandelure, I think. Magneton's also a really good switch into Dual Stab because it resists, well, it resists the Draco at least, and then, yeah. We'll see what happens. I'm not gonna, it needs to be Scarf though. Running enough speed on here to outrun Nidoking. So if he's Scarf Nidoking, we will outspeed it by 1 point and then drop a Draco. Max special attack with a lot of HP bulk. I'm glad I made that play actually, but U-turn is really important. So you notice we have 3 U-turners and a Volt Switcher this week. Our goal is to basically be in control of the momentum the entire game, and that's generally how I like to play. But against Nacho's team, I think it's really important to be able to do that because he's been making a lot of predictions this season, and I kind of want to catch him napping on some of those and just go into something else that threatens, like, extensively, like Mega Beedrill with Fell Stinger, for example. Last but not least, we'll talk about our Celesteela set here. So this is kind of some heat. Bring the Celesteela set. This is a product of Jed and Rudiger and kind of me, but mostly them, helping me out with my building this week. So we've got Toxic Leech Seed, Acrobatics, and Earthquake with the Waconberry. We actually live, well, we take a Thunderbolt from Magneton or Xurkitree very well. I think those are the main things that threaten me. Chandelure is kind of something that Chandelure threatens me too, and like an unboosted Mega Latios with Thunderbolt we can tank really easily, and Nidoking with Thunderbolt we can tank really easily. So that's kind of where we're at with that. I've got Toxic Leech Seed to sort of like stall something out. He's been a fan of Leftovers Melodic. He might bring Flame Orb because of how relatively physically offensive my team is. Maybe, if I can catch it switching in for some reason. I don't know. Toxic's just really good against his team because, again, he's only got Nidoking and Magneton as immunities. And Celesteela is packing the Earthquake for both of them. I have enough attack investment on here. We're actually running Max Attack Adamant. This will Oko and a Violite Magneton from full with our Earthquake. Assuming he's not max HP, max defense. I just assumed he was max defense. So that's kind of where we're at with that. Max HP, Waconberry lets us live some attacks. Acrobatics is really cool. I was kind of debating on what to put for that last move. I had Air Slash on there, and then Jed was like, you should put Acrobatics because you're using a berry. I was like, that's a great idea. Thanks, Jed. Otherwise, I got hard-walled by the Araquanid with my original other idea was putting Heavy Slam on here to deal with things like Sneasel. It dealt with Nidoking alright. I think a little bit better than Earthquake, if I remember correctly. I can't remember entirely. But we got the Acrobatics on there, so once our berries popped, we will be able to get a ton of damage off with our Acrobatics. We will Oko things like Kalucha, we will Oko things like Tapu Bulu, we will Oko things like Sneasel, things like Nidoking potentially. We are Max Attack Adamant, so we will be getting Beast Boosts from the attack side, and we are not running any speed. That's not necessarily on purpose, but if he decides he wants to speed creep my Celesteela, then that's fine. I'm actually going to move this Spadef investment into speed in case he does want to speed creep my Celesteela with something. So that is about it. Yeah, we play Nacho late next week, so this is like super early with my team builder, but there was a lot of thought that went into this regardless of how fast it went. So, I will catch you guys later and see you for the match.